When my brother and I were starting our first company, instead of getting an apartment, we just rented a small office and we slept on the couch. We had just one computer, so the website was up during the day and I was coding at night. 7 days a week, all the time.
If you succeed, and in most cases you will not succeed, and Tesla almost didn't succeed, came very close to failure. I don't ever give up. I mean, I'd have to be dead or completely incapacitated.
If you're trying to do something new, it's the best way to think. I think people can choose to be not ordinary. You know, they can choose to not necessarily conform to the conventions that were taught to them by their parents. Yes, I think it's possible for ordinary people to choose to be extraordinary. I think also just don't be afraid of new arenas. You know, you can get a book, you can learn something, and experiment with your hands, and just make it happen. Find a way or make a way to get something done. It's like the Nike slogan, just do it. That's just showing up is half the battle. You got to try hard to do it, and don't be afraid of failure. You also need to be rooted in reality. So you shouldn't. It's easy to get high in your own supply. You've got to not be afraid to innovate, but also don't delude yourself into thinking something's working when it's not, or you're going to get fixated on a bad solution. You go to the very basic laws of physics, the things which we believe to be extremely well demonstrated. In other words, the reason they call it a law is that no one has ever demonstrated an exception to that, ever. As Edison said, it's 1% inspiration, 99% perspiration. I think it's really a mindset. You have to decide, we're going to try to do things differently. Well, provided that they're better. You shouldn't do things differently just because they're different. They need to be different and better. But I think you just have to sort of decide. Let's think beyond the normal stuff. There's this great holy grail potential in the future. You have to stay grounded in the short term. So because if you don't do things that pay the bills, you're not going to achieve the ultimate long-term objective. But it's nice to have that sort of holy grail long-term potential out there as an inspiration for coming to work. If you study engineering and you figure out how to design new things, then it's relatively easy to start a company. You just need to get a few like-minded people with you, and then focus on creating a prototype, a compelling prototype, as soon as possible. And that's all there is to it. And you might, if you try it a few times, you may or may not succeed. But I think sometimes people fear starting a company too much. You have to say, really, what's the worst that could go wrong? You're not going to starve to death. You're not going to die of exposure. What's the worst that could go wrong?
And SpaceX be the company that brings humanity to Mars, and I hope I see it while I'm still alive.
You're 47. What is the likelihood that you personally will go to Mars?
70%.
What is your hope in terms of the impact you will leave on culture?
I think what I'd like to do is help solve some important problems.
All the companies we interviewed in Silicon Valley, Tesla is the only one that survived a decade later. All the others went bankrupt.
You think that you are going to be the General Motors of the future?
I would describe it differently. I think really the goal of Tesla Motors is to help accelerate the advent of the electric vehicle. The whole point of Tesla is to accelerate the advent of electric vehicles.
Erratic, unstable, reckless, operatic.
I'm just being me. The system would have failed if I was truly erratic. Try to adhere to some CEO template.
You said that we got lost along the way with our space program. What did you mean by that?
Well, what I mean by that is, in 1969, we were able to go to the moon. And here we are, over 3 decades later, and we can barely get to low Earth orbit.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sleeping on the factory floor, not because I think that's like a fun place to sleep. You know, terrible.
Sleeping on the factory floor why are you doing that?
Because I don't have time to go home and shower. I sleep on the couch over there.
So you're just laying here on the couch?
Yeah.
It's that simple?
Yes. I don't believe like people should be experiencing hardship while the CEO is like off on vacation. The truth is stranger than fiction. Okay, this is why it's important, and even if the odds are that it won't succeed, it's worth trying to do it. Then I think you can create a great company. The further you zoom out and the greater the span of time that you look at, the things that seem important in the moment fade away, and the things that are truly significant are still there.
What is it that you have that so many people who are unbelievably brilliant at engineering or are incredibly good managers or bold business people or what have you, what is it that you have, do you think, that enables you to make this stuff happen?
When I was a little kid, I was really scared of the dark. But then I sort of came to understand, okay, well, dark just means really the absence of photons in the visible wavelength.
But they bring light to the dark, and they show us the universe.
And Elon said, darkness is merely the absence of light.
Then I thought, well, it's really silly to be afraid of a lack of photons. Then I wasn't afraid of the dark anymore after that. You went really far and look at the 4 billion year history of Earth and the evolution of life itself, and say, what are the major milestones in the evolution of life itself? I mean, obviously there's single-celled life, multicellular life, there's differentiation of plants and animals, there's life going from the oceans to land, there's mammals and consciousness, just maybe a half a dozen or so really big milestones in the history of life. And I think on that scale it would also fit the extension of life to multiple planets. We've got something that's so important that it would fit on, it'd be one of the half dozen or so most important milestones in the history of life itself. That's pretty darn important. And it goes beyond the parochial concerns of humanity. It's something that is of importance to life in general. So that's why I think it's important to do. And this is the first time in the 4 billion year history of Earth that it's been possible.
So why do it?
I just kept wondering why we were not making progress towards sending people to Mars, why we didn't have a base on the moon, and year after year. It was getting me down. I look at the NASA website, where does it say when we're going to Mars? It doesn't. I'd like to see humanity go beyond Earth and have people on Mars. That would be really great. And to see widespread adoption of electric vehicles and renewable energy. Really what matters is, are we making a difference in the world? And for us to make a difference in the world, we have to build a lot of cars. You know, until we see every car on the road being electric, you know, we will not stop. This is really just the first step for SpaceX. We've shown we can get to orbit. It's really just the first step for SpaceX. If things had just gone a little bit the other way, both companies would be dead. And I like one of the most difficult choices I have ever faced in life was in 2008. I think I had maybe $30 million left, or $30 or $40 million left in 2008. And I had two choices. I could put it all into one company, and then the other company would definitely die, or split it between the two companies. But if I split it between the two companies, then both might die. And when you put your blood, sweat, and tears into creating something, or building something, it's like a child. And so it's like, which one am I going to let one starve to death? I couldn't bring myself to do it, so I split the money between the two. Fortunately, thank goodness, they both came through.
You know, there are American heroes who don't like this idea. Neil Armstrong, Gene Cernan have both testified against commercial spaceflight and the way that you're developing it, and I wonder what you think of that.
I was very sad to see that, because those guys are, You know, those guys are heroes of mine, so it's really tough. You know, I wish they would come and visit and see the hardware that we're doing here. And I think that would change their mind.
And to see them casting stones in your direction.
It's difficult.
Did you expect them to cheer you on?
So they're hoping they would. What I'm trying to do is to make a significant difference in spaceflight and help make spaceflight accessible to almost anyone. And I would hope for as much support in that direction as we can receive.
Crazy things can come true. Because he said, like, I didn't really think this would work. Because when I see the rocket lift off, I see like 1,000 things that could not work, and it's amazing when they do. But I think it's going to open up a sense of possibility. I think it's going to encourage other companies and countries to say, hey, if SpaceX, which is a commercial company, can do this, and nobody paid for Falcon Heavy, it was paid for with internal funds, then they could do it too. So I think it's going to encourage other countries and companies to raise their sights and say, hey, we can do bigger and better, which is great. We want a new space race.
About you is you don't just talk about the future of humanity, you actually start companies and do things about it. So what made you so audacious?
People sometimes think technology just automatically gets better every year, but it actually doesn't. It only gets better if smart people work like crazy to make it better. That's how any technology actually gets better.
I don't really think of these things as all that audacious. They seem like natural things to do. It's sort of more of a long-term optimization rather than a short-term one. Yeah, I just, not that I think everyone should be doing these things, but someone needs to do them. So if I see that, well, somebody's not doing this and maybe I could be helpful, then I try to do something in that regard. And there were lots of people that tried to talk me out of it, and the joke was, how do you make a small fortune in the rocket business? Well, you start with a large one. I already thought the probability of failure was high, and that with that, the likelihood of success was therefore low. And so this was not new information. I thought maybe SpaceX had, I don't know, 10 or 20% chance of success.
Just, all the ways they can fail. And that's like the sort of mental checklist that's scrolling through your mind. Is all the things that can break. I mean, there's thousands of things that can go wrong, and everything has to go right once the rocket lifts off. There's no opportunity to do a recall or upload a software fix or anything like that. It's either pass or grade 100%. And I've seen rockets blow up so many different ways. So, it's a big relief when it actually works.
You want to be inspired by things. You want to wake up in the morning and think the future's going to be great.
For PayPal, I decided I wanted to get back into electric vehicles and make something happen in that arena. It wasn't as though in creating these companies that we thought that we would be successful. I thought that the most likely outcome was failure, but it was still worth doing.
Well, I didn't really think Tesla would be successful. I thought we would most likely fail. But I thought that we at least could address the false perception that people had that an electric car had to be ugly and slow and boring like a golf cart.
So you didn't expect the company to be successful? Then why try?
If something's important enough, you should try, even if the probable outcome is failure.
Elon Musk was just very honest, and I really think back then he may have thought the idea would survive, but his company would not.
If something didn't happen to improve rocket technology, we would be stuck on Earth forever. Going and setting up a base on Mars would just be the greatest adventure ever. Either we are a multi-planet species and out there exploring the stars, or we are a single-planet species waiting around for some eventual extinction event. I think wishful thinking is innate in the human brain.
If need be, I'm prepared to fund this all the way until SpaceX is the world's top launch company. Absolutely.
I think it's important that we become a spacefaring civilization and be out there among the stars. And I think that's one of the things that, makes people excited about the future. And we want the things that are in science fiction novels and movies not to be science fiction forever. We want them to be real one day.